I'm going to show how to make this Space-Scape using Affinity Photo's procedural texture filter. I've been working on a Space-Scape for a while, and I finally came up with one that I sort of like, so I'm going to show how to make something like this today. I'm going to do this in 3 different steps. The first step will be to add these regular rounded stars. The second step, I'll show how to make these stars with pointed corners. Then the last step will be to add the nebulae. To get started, I'll start with a blank 1024 by 1024 document, and I'm going to add a procedural texture filter to that. I'm going to make the normal stars first. I'll get started with the new equation. I'm going to assign it to all 3 channels, and I'm going to make it start with variable v equals vec2 of rx and ry times a divided by w. So I'm dividing by the width of the document and multiplying by a scaling factor. And just show what that looks like, I'll just put it in as v and add my real value for the a. When I bring this up, I get my red, green, and yellow colors showing up. To get started with the stars, I originally started with, I thought I would use noise, random numbers, and just make a noise of v and see what that looks like. So there are my random numbers. If I zoom out, it doesn't really look like stars. But, so I changed it to noise I, and it still doesn't look like stars. I thought I'd use the power function, POW, since these range in value from 0 to 1. If I raise that to a value b that I'll put in, then only the brightest stars would be remaining if I brought b up to a really large value. So here's b, and you can see as I bring this up, I get fewer and fewer points. So now if I bring this up, okay, starting to look a little bit more star-like. But I'd have to bring this up to a really large value. So I thought in order to make this easier to adjust, I'm going to multiply b times 10. Okay, so now it looks pretty good, but if I zoom in on these, they're still squares. So the next idea I had was if I blur this with the Gaussian filter, I could make them, instead of square pixels, I could make them rounded. There isn't a good way to do a Gaussian filter using procedural textures, as far as I know. So I'm just going to use the regular built-in Gaussian blur and apply that down here. Oops. And then bring that up until they look more rounded. There they're nice and rounded, but now they're a little bit too dark. So I'm going to add another procedural texture. And so for this one, I'm going to saturate it. And I'm going to bring that down until it's on top of this other one. Like that. And in order to do this, I'm going to do a smooth step linear. And that'll take 2 edges, E1 and E2. And then I'm just going to take the average of the red, green, and blue channels. And I'm going to put it out to all 3 red, green, and blue channels, like that. And this takes 2 inputs, the 2 edges. What this is going to do is map these 2 edges from 0 to 1. So I can bring this one, as I bring this one down, the grayscale of that is 1 will become a larger value. So if I bring this all the way down, it'll make those large circles. I don't want that. And also I want to filter out some of the gray values. So I just get the star values in here, or the points that are stars. So I can sort of control the size and brightness of the stars, and actually the number of stars, with these 2 controls. For the last part, I'm going to add in a color, and I'm just going to do an adjustment, and I'll do a gradient, and I'll use the default gradient to get started, and I'll make this one black, and I'll make this color, I'll just take this one out, and I'll make this color white, and then the middle one, I'll make that saturated and yellow. I'm going to put this gradient on top of the, right in here, top of this layer. Then I can turn that on or off. Now I do pick up, with the Gaussian blur, I am picking up this little edge effect, but I'm just going to not worry about that. I'm going to duplicate this. And for this gradient, I can just change this to a different color. Maybe I'll make that one red. And since they're now over on top of each other, I'm going to do a couple other things. Let's do a screen for these. And then I need to move them over. So since it's RX, RY, I could grab these and move them over, and I'll just bring it over a ways like that. I could also adjust the size of these and the number that I have as well. And I could add more levels of stars. I think in the other picture I used 3 levels. But I'm going to do, I'll just duplicate this again. But this time I'm going to delete the Gaussian blur. And I'll also delete this. And I'm going to turn off these two, so you can't see those. Turn off this one. So now I'm back to my regular pixels. Now I wanted to make stars that have 4 points like this. I'm going to make my stars into a variable, s equals POW here. And then just show s, which looks like that. So there's a function osccr, and if I just make that a function of v, it looks like that. So if I look at these, I'm going to bring this down to 10. So those have very nice star-like shape to them. It's just that there's too many of them, right? They're all over the place. They form a sort of a checkerboard pattern. And so the first idea I thought is, well, let's suppose I just multiplied that by s. And so now if I zoom out on these, I can see that these are picking up stars once in a while, which is sort of what I want. I'm going to add 2 0 to 1 sliders here. I'm going to call this one IX and IY. Because I want to position this so the center of the star is in the center of each of these little squares. So to do that, I'm going to break this down into its components. I'm going to access that with v.x, and I'm going to add ix to that one, and I'll use v.y, and then I'll add iy to that one. Okay, so now I can move these over, and I'm going to adjust them until each of these is in the middle of the squares. Now I see some of these, it's not all of them will line up that way, but at least a lot of them are aligned to the center, and then some of them are in the opposite checker pattern where there isn't anything in there. So this will be fine. I'm going to line them up like that. It looks like it's about at 0.5, 0.5, so I'm actually going to delete these two, and instead of having my sliders, I'll put in 0.5 and 0.5. So that looks good. Now I want to change this so I can make these brighter, and I want to get rid of this square shape. In order to do that, I'm going to put this all inside of my smooth step function. I'll use the smooth step linear and E1 comma E2 and put a parentheses over here. Add my two edges. Now this one I want to bring up until I just see the diamond shape, and then this one I can use to control how bright they are. Well, I want to be careful I don't start bringing in these weird edges. Okay, I'm going to take the 10 multiplier off my power function to give me a little finer control over these. Okay, I'll make these a little bit bigger. And I think this one I'm going to make blue. Now I have my pointed stars. One additional thing I could do to this is I could add a rotation. So instead of just having ordinary coordinates like this, I could allow myself to rotate these. So I'll add a rotation, theta. And in order to do that, I have to modify my coordinates in my, I have to modify my coordinate vector. And I'll just do Rx times cosine of theta minus Ry times sine of theta. And over here, I'll have an Rx times the sine of theta plus Ry times the cosine of theta. I think that'll allow me to rotate these. So let's see how that goes. So if I hold the shift key down, yeah, now I can rotate these so they don't have to be aligned with the X and Y axis. They can be at an angle like that. I notice in the Hubble telescope images, they're sort of rotated like that. So that gives me my second layer, or my second type of star. I guess my third layer here. And then for the last one, I'm going to add in some nebula. So nebula, to me, it seems like a natural that you would use a Perlin noise function for nebula. I'm just going to duplicate this set of layers. I'm just going to take out this and these. And I'm going to start with, I'll start with the variable v0 vec2 rx ry times a divided by w. And then I'm going to have a variable v, and in this one I'm going to add some turbulence to it. So it'll be v0 plus t1 times directional noise. I'll use the S-curve directional noise, v0. And then I want to be able to scale this, and so I'll call it t scaling, like that. And I'll just put v out here. And I need to add custom inputs. For T1, I'll have that go, I guess I'll have that go from -1 to 1, so that'll be my T1, and then this T scale will be a real value, TS, and I'll just bring that up to, I'll apply these to all three channels. So let's bring this up a little bit. So you can see my grid, I can sort of add some turbulence to that, like this. All right. That's the first part. Now I'm going to add, I'm going to add perlinhcubic noise, and so I need some parameter for the octaves, which will be O, and then for the smoothness, which will be a slider from 0 to 1. I'll bring octaves up to about 7, and now I can put in my Perlin. If I just do perlincubic, V, comma, O, comma, S, like that. Okay, it looks like that. Right now I have this gradient on. I'm going to just turn that off for now. I could make this smoother like that. I think I'll turn these off for now. I'll bring these back on later. And so there's my basic noise. I'm going to make this an H cubic. So it's positive and negative. And then I'm going to put this on an oscillator so that I get rid of the negative parts of it. So just a linear oscillator looks a little more like that. And I'm going to add a another real variable, and this will be the number of rings. And I'll multiply this perlincubic in here by B. So as I bring this up, I can add more rings like that. Don't know how helpful that'll be here, but sometimes it's nice to have a little more flexibility in your Perlin noise, and that makes a nice flexible Perlin noise. So I can do quite a bit of variety with this, which is what I want. But it's all over the place. I want to change that. First thing I'm going to do is to, I'm just going to delete this gradient, and I have a gradient set up here for the Perlin noise. So I'll add an adjustment, and I think I have a nebula set up. So I'm going to do this one. And this one is set up to have some large black areas, some at the beginning, some over here at the other end. I could probably spread this out a little bit like that. So I have a black area over here. This is black. This is black. So I'll go through each of these. Okay, so those are the HSL slider values if you wanted to grab those. All right, I'm going to put this down on top of that layer so that I could toggle this on or off if I wanted to. So now I can turn all of these on, and it's starting to look a little more space-like. But instead of having these all over the place, I want them to be only in certain areas. And so in order to do that, I'm going to multiply this one by a different Perlin noise that's at a different scale. I'm going to add another variable C, and this will be a different scale, and I'm going to actually divide it out by that. Multiply, divide the scaling by C, and also the smoothness by C, because I want this a little bit smoother. So as I bring that up, it'll make it smoother. So I can sort of just grab an edge of this and bring it in here. I can add some more turbulence to this one, and I can add some more depth to that. Okay. So that's my basic nebula. I'm going to just have a corner of this sticking in here probably. Something like that. And then I could add on another one on top of this. And maybe make it, let's drag over here, some other thing, and maybe make this one, change the scale, maybe make this one a little less turbulent, a little more smooth. And then I can go in and maybe make the gradient a little bit different too. So on this one, I'll just add some other gradient colors in here. And add some more of the gap. So the black is going to be sort of a gap color. Let's add some more black for the gaps. Maybe move these all down. And just mess around with it until you get something that you like. It looks nice. Maybe take that one out of this one. A little more of a yellow or other colors. And then you can do and take this whole thing and then adjust the opacity of it. So they have, some of them are have a different opacity, and maybe where they overlap you'll get more intensity. Okay, so that's my space starscape picture, and let me know if you have any comments or questions, and thanks for watching.